I love plants, I love gardening, and I am fortunate to live in an area that allows me to enjoy this activity for many months of the year. And I'm actually able to plant new plants and continue garden making even into the summer months and even into when it starts to heat up somewhat. And I can be successful doing that as long as I follow the techniques that I'm going to share with you in this video. Have you ever had a plant die on you? I bet you have. And we always kind of want to try and figure out why so that we can maybe save some money, save some time in the long run, and improve our techniques. So today's video, I hope, is going to help you improve your planting technique. And it's particularly useful, this technique that we're going to go through, is really all about making it, being more successful in planting new plantings when the weather heats up, when the soil is drier, and that type of situation. It kind of extends our gardening season, our garden making season, quite a bit. One of the things that I've seen happen is that you have a plant, failed to thrive, maybe died, and you pull that plant out of the ground in order to uncover and investigate what might have gone wrong. And when you pull that plant out of the ground, you basically notice that its root ball is in the same shape and size as when you planted it. I'm Darcy Daniels. I'm creator of eGardenGo and a garden designer that lives and gardens in Portland, Oregon, which is USDA Zone 8B, bordering on 9A. And the technique that I'm going to be showing you today, I just want to tell you my soil makeup here, where I use this technique a lot, is pretty fast draining, not overly fertile, unfortunately. I do have a lot of rocks in my soil, and it's not heavy clay. I don't have heavy clay. I do use this technique with some on client sites, but the patience part of that has to be a little bit more front and forward, because clay soil is going to typically drain more slowly. So just keep all of these things in mind. So here we are, mid-July, a sunny day, forecasted to be in the high to mid 80s, and I have successfully introduced a new plant into my garden, and I have a lot of confidence that it's going to establish successfully. In order to make sure that the root ball of my plant is thoroughly saturated and, not dry at all. See how it's kind of floating in there a little bit. This is quite dry, and I know that it's dry because it's a light, feels light to the touch, not very heavy, in other words. And then when I put the submerge it all the way underneath the surface of the water, I'm getting those air bubbles. And so I need to soak that in there until those air bubbles stop formulating. Sometimes you have to kind of hold it underneath there for a bit. In this example, I'm using a pretty small bucket. Oftentimes you'll have to use something larger, because the key is that it needs to go below the surface of the water. So if I had like a 2-gallon plant or something like that, it would be difficult to do in this small of a container. The next thing that I do is I dig my hole. And my hole is larger than the plant that I'm planting. It's a little bit wider, and it's about the same depth as the plant that I'm putting in there. I'm going to be doing a gallon plant. Then I fill that hole with water, and depending upon what type of soil makeup you have, it's going to either drain pretty quickly or it's going to take a while. It's important that you don't rush this step. I need to wait until that water drains before I proceed with my next step. As I go through this next step, you're going to notice that I am working with two different plants. I've got this little one that's in a 3.5-inch pot, and then the one that we're going to be planting is a gallon-sized plant. But I'm just demonstrating the steps, and so yes, I do have two different plants and two different sizes, but don't focus on that. also notice that I am dunking it in its plastic nursery pot, not as a open root ball. It is enclosed in its nursery pot, and that's also important. Now that I have soaked my plant thoroughly, I removed it from the pot, and now I'm examining its roots. I want to make sure it's not overly root bound. This is in pretty good shape, but I am going to loosen that root ball just a little bit. This plant is now pretty well prepared for the next step. I've loosened the root ball, and now it's ready to be put in my planting hole. My planting hole has been prepared. The soil has been pre-moistened. Okay, so time has passed, and I am returning to my planting hole, and the water has drained. And that's really, 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 I can't stress enough how important patience is in this. You just need to wait to make sure that soil has drained, because if you start working with the soil and it's still got standing water in there and it's still really gloppy, you're really going to be damaging your soil structure unnecessarily. In some parts of my garden, my soil drains really, really quickly. And so I will often, especially in high summer when the soil is dry, I may come back in here and fill that hole again. And then, most importantly, is walking away and letting that drain again, letting that water go all the way into the surrounding soil. Wait for that to really thoroughly drain and be pretty dry before I come back in and finish the installation and firm that plant into its final little resting place. This is a technique that I was introduced to from one of my mentors who's been gardening in the Portland area for a long, long time. And sadly, she's no longer with us, but I hear her voice all the time in terms of some of the tips and some of the ideas and some of the techniques that she shared with all of us. And this does come from Lucy Hardiman. Okay, now time for the caveats. This is not, you still have to kind of make some judgments, think about what you're doing, and make sure that you are keeping the overarching goal in mind. And the overarching goal is that you want your plant that you are planting and the surrounding soil to have a pretty consistent and even moisture when you are after you've installed the plant. So it's the consistency, and it's the between the plant's root ball and the surrounding soil that is really the overarching goal, regardless of how you get there, right? Because that's what's going to make it possible for the root system of the plant to be invited into the surrounding soil and allow that plant to get established. For those that might be curious, this condition of the soil where it's so dry that it's actually repelling water, that means that your soil is hydrophobic. And that's one of the things that we're trying to eliminate in this as we use this planting technique. Of course, planting in spring and fall is easier and perhaps even better. But as gardeners, we find ourselves wanting to plant beyond those ideal times because we're enthusiastic gardeners, right? Or perhaps you've undergone a construction project. You've made a renovation in your landscape, and you find yourself in high summer, and it is time for you to reinstall your garden or install a new garden. Well, this method is going to help you as well. If your plant is large, like 10-gallon, 15-gallon, or something like that, obviously it's really difficult to pre-soak that root ball. But, try if you can. I mean, when we were working construction sites, we might get a garbage can or something really large and still try and do this pre-soak. Again, if that's not practical, you can still water that root ball. Just make sure you do it slowly and, kind of over time. Don't rush it. You want that root ball to take on the water. You do this, all of it the same. It just takes longer. And so that's why I stress the need for patience to do this. And honestly, one of those things that I struggled with as a landscape designer, trying to install gardens in the heat of summer and throughout the year, is it's hard to get a construction crew to do this the way that I do it at home, because it's slow, it's not necessarily practical, and it's not necessarily how they bid the project. So do be aware that there may be some education required for the crew. If you're using a crew or somebody beside yourself doing this planting, you may encounter some resistance. And so I would just look at that as an opportunity to perhaps share with them the reasons why. And again, this is a very important strategy if you want to continue to plant through the summer, through the hot weather, and without high failure rate. This isn't a technique that you necessarily need to practice in all cases and in all times of the year. So additional caveats that I want to point out are, what if you have plants in their containers that are, maybe not fully established. Maybe the root system isn't going all the way to the edge. Maybe the roots are adequate for planting, but maybe not enough of a root system in that nursery pot, so that if you soak it, that it might be a little bit disruptive, right? So there has to be enough roots in that nursery pot so that the soil is holds together still after you soak it. If you don't feel like it's going to do that, then that plant doesn't need pre-soaking, because you're already going to have consistent moisture throughout that soil that's in the nursery pot. And of course, you want to be reasonable, right? You still don't want to plant in 95-degree days or 90-degree days if you can help it. It's always best to try and choose your planting day where it's a little cooler. Maybe try to do it in the morning hours or the evening hours. All of these things are a little easier to do if you are a DIY or a homeowner, where the planting is kind of really on you and on your schedule. Gets a little bit more challenging if you're working with a crew or perhaps somebody that you've hired for the day or something like that. So it's nothing set in stone. These are just guidelines. But I hope that by understanding what your goals are in terms of the soil saturation, that you can be more successful in adapting to what the actual situation is that you're trying to plant in. What's the weather like? What's the condition of the plants that you're working with? What's the soil saturation of your of your ground? What's the makeup of your soil? All of those things are things that you're going to want to consider. And I hope that, kind of really taking the time to talk through this has been helpful. So if you like this type of video and you like these types of tips, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.